If you had only 127 hours left, and your only way out was to sacrifice a part of your own body.
Whoever finds this, please make an attempt to get it to them. Be sure, but I would appreciate it.
Could you do it? Many of you know this story from the film 127 Hours. But beneath the Hollywood version lies a raw, unfiltered reality, one that's even harder to tell. This isn't just a story about a climber. It's about a man who believed he had carved his own tomb and then found a way to walk out of it. This is the real case file of Aron Ralston and the extraordinary price he paid to survive. Aron Ralston was born on the 27th of October, 1975, in Indianapolis. When he was 11, his family moved to Denver, Colorado. He studied engineering. He was intelligent, disciplined, analytical. But his true passion wasn't in a classroom or an office. It was in the mountains. Ralston set his sights on climbing Colorado's 14ers peaks, rising above 14,000 feet, and he wanted to do it alone. He preferred solo climbs. To him, it was freedom. No noise. No distractions, just him and the mountain. But solitude comes with a cost, and sometimes it's the greatest risk of all.
I don't know what it is about me. It's brought me to this, but looking for adventure and risk so I can feel alive. Tell someone where I'm going. It's just dumb.
In 2002, he walked away from his engineering job at Intel. He chose to shape his life entirely around the outdoors. His family admired his courage, but they also admitted, at times, they were worried. In one interview, his mother said, "Aron always pushed the limits, but we had to believe he would come back." The fatal mistake.
My name's Aron Ralston. My parents are Donald and Larry Ralston of Englewood, Colorado. Whoever finds this, please make an attempt to get it to them. Be sure, but I would appreciate it.
The 26th of April, 2003. 27-year-old experienced climber Aron Ralston set out alone into the remote canyons of Utah. He was confident, strong, and convinced he knew what he was doing. But that day, he made the one mistake even professionals are warned about. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He packed light about 800 milliliters of water, a few snacks, and a cheap multi-tool with a blade so dull it could barely pass for a knife. While descending a narrow slot in Blue John Canyon, he stepped onto a massive boulder. It shifted. What happened next took only seconds. As Ralston fell to the canyon floor, a 360-kilogram rock crashed down, pinning his right arm against the canyon wall. The boulder settled into place. He screamed. Only his echo answered back. From that moment on, the clock started ticking. The 127-hour nightmare began. The first 24 hours felt like an engineering problem. Ralston tried rigging a pulley system with his ropes, attempting to shift the rock. He even tried chipping at it with his dull blade, but the boulder didn't move. His water supply dropped to roughly 350 milliliters. Food was limited. Time kept passing.
I have very, very little water. My body's having difficulty controlling its temperature. I'm in deep stuff.
At night, the desert cold cut through him.
God, I'm really screwed. I'm going to shrivel up right here over the course of the next few days.
During the day, the sun scorched the canyon walls. Circulation in his trapped arm began to fail. His fingers darkened. And slowly, one truth became impossible to ignore. No one was coming.
Yeah, and I said to myself, here we go, Aron, you're in it now. And I took my knife.
Day 3 and 4. Psychological collapse. As the days passed, dehydration began to trigger hallucinations. His food was gone. His water was nearly gone. In a desperate attempt to stay alive, he even resorted to drinking his own urine. He turned on his camera and started recording goodbye messages for his family. He wasn't hysterical. He wasn't screaming. He spoke calmly, clearly, almost methodically. "Please forgive me." He said goodbye.
He didn't want Mom to know, obviously. I would have been shaken in my shoes and probably shaking him.
My son has been reported missing since last Thursday night.
He carved his name and birth date into the rock beside him, and beneath it, he etched what he believed would be the date of his death. Aron Ralston, 1975-2003. The canyon had become his coffin. This was the acceptance stage. The breaking point, hour 127. As the hours dragged on, the hallucinations intensified. In a later interview, Aron Ralston described one vivid vision. "I was holding a little boy. I had only one arm, but I was happy." In that moment, he believed the child was his future son. And that vision triggered something powerful. If he didn't die here, there could still be a future waiting for him. But his right arm was no longer truly his. His fingers had turned dark. Circulation was gone. The tissue had deteriorated beyond recovery. When he pressed the blade into his arm, he realized he felt nothing. The nerves were no longer responding, but the bones were still intact. And with a dull multi-tool, cutting through bone wasn't possible.
I tried cutting my arm off. I couldn't even barely break the skin with this stupid knife. I tried a couple different blades, and all I did was just mark myself up. I can barely even get any blood to draw.
By early morning, he formed a different plan. The knife couldn't cut through bone, but bone could be broken. He braced his arm against the rock and used his body as leverage. First, he snapped the radius. Later, he would describe the sound echoing through the canyon as like breaking a dry stick. The clearest sound I've ever heard in my life.
I stuck the knife down in and at my thumb at that spot, and it slid in like I was sliding it into a pat of warm butter. And it went in, I couldn't feel it, of course, but it went in about a half inch, and then this hissing sound of gas, the decomposition gases releasing from inside my arm, my hand, where they'd been building up as my hand was decomposing over those 5 days. And that threw me into a panic. It scared me. It appalled me. It was a gruesome concept that my hand was decaying while still attached to my body. And I started yanking my hand, my arm, and I was giving it everything that I had, and was twisting myself around and trying to slide my arm up and down like this, that I could break the bones, because my arm was caught so tightly that I could torque myself.
What remained were muscle and nerves. The most agonizing part was severing the remaining nerves. Nearly an hour later, the ordeal was over. After 127 hours, he was finally free.
Boom, and I wasn't even attached anymore, and I fell down like this, and I was free.
But he wasn't safe. He still had to rappel down a 65-foot wall with one arm.
It's pretty much set. It's 4 hours from here to my vehicle. Climbing would probably be impossible with one hand. The blood loss and my dehydration, I think, are ruling that out. I think I would die.
And then hike miles through the desert alone, becoming a survivor. By sheer luck, Aron Ralston was discovered by a family hiking through the canyon. It was a miracle. By the time the helicopter arrived, he had lost nearly 25% of his body weight. Doctors later said that if help had come even an hour later, he likely wouldn't have survived. But that day, he didn't just leave part of his arm behind in that canyon. He left behind his old way of seeing the world.
Applied the knife to my arm and started sawing back and forth, and it didn't even break the skin. I couldn't.
So instead, he managed to snap the bones and then applied his knife again.
I was able to first snap the radius, and then within another few minutes snap the ulna at the wrist, and from there I had the knife out and applied the tourniquet, and went to task there. I felt pain, and I coped with it. I moved on.
What makes the story even more haunting is this. His family didn't even know he was missing because he had never told them where he was going.
He didn't want Mom to know, obviously. I would have been shaken in my shoes and probably shaking him.
My son has been reported missing since last Thursday night.
Later, his mother said, "When the phone rang, I felt something was wrong." When they saw him in the hospital, they were in shock. In one interview, his father said, "It didn't matter that my son lost his arm. What mattered was that we didn't lose him." His family made it clear how proud they were of his will to live. In 2010, his story was adapted into the film 127 Hours, which went on to receive Academy Award nominations.
That first time, the most surreal thing was that everybody else in the theater is just like, and it's very intense, as it was for me to be doing that, to be getting out of there. But for me, I'm watching, and I lived it. So now I'm watching a production of it, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is really well done, as I'm snacking on my popcorn.
Today, Aron Ralston still climbs. With a prosthetic arm, he challenges some of the world's most demanding peaks. He's also a motivational speaker, sharing what he learned in that canyon and how sometimes the very rocks that trap us can become unexpected gifts.
I hope that you might remember a little bit of my story, and if one thing sticks with you, maybe aside from the urine, but about that smile.
And here's the most striking detail of all. After the accident, he got married, and he really did have a son. The child he saw in that hallucination became real. For 127 hours, a man stood face to face with death. But what kept him alive wasn't physical strength. It was the possibility of a future. Sometimes, the thing that saves you is a moment that hasn't happened yet.
You were reborn.
It was the happiest moment of my life. And it's funny to think about it being, there will never be a more powerful experience for me.
So let me ask you, how far would you go to survive? This is Based on Real.